Hi, my name is Gerhard Schwantner and welcome to Selling Power TV. Today we have the pleasure of continuing our conversation with Nancy Martini, who is the President and CEO of PI Worldwide. Welcome, Nancy.
Thanks, Gerhard.
Let's talk about the new normal. How do you define the new normal?
Yeah, the new normal is a bit of a buzzword, but what it really reflects is the changes that have occurred since the economy has been in flux. And it really is characterized, especially in the sales world, by globalization, increased pace of business, fewer resources, higher demand for performance, and really managing in an entire environment of uncertainty.
But also there is social media. The old processes have changed, the way buyers are communicating with one another and the way sales teams collaborate.
Absolutely, which impacts, again, so what does that mean? How do I operate differently if I'm a sales manager or a rep?
Right.
And the new normal is the reason I think the tagline is there, is that it's not ever going back to the good old days.
Right. I think we have moved from an era of predictability to an era where we have a lot more chaos. But the good news is that out of chaos comes opportunity. And so we need to change our thinking, in my view, from what I call planning rigid thinking to more liquid, fluid thinking and being a lot more adaptive in the process. What's your view?
Absolutely. I would say as well, probably the top three things that a sales manager needs to do today: increase their resilience, increase their stamina, and increase their ability to change rapidly. Exactly what you're talking about.
So how should sales managers operate differently? And what are the specific things that they need to be adaptive to?
Right.
Because you don't want to adapt to everything. You need to
Correct.
make good choices.
Yeah, the things that we're seeing, I mean, definitely a high reliance on analytics. People don't have the luxury of, forget money, it's really about time to make big mistakes. So there's a much higher reliance today on analytics to understand what needs to happen. And then also kind of beefing up all their management skills. Understanding how to help their sales teams work well under pressure, how to help their sales teams adapt to change. I was at an interesting event last week with sales leaders across Canada, all Fortune 500 companies, and out of the 15 folks in the room, every single one of them was struggling with transition.
So let's go to solution selling for a second, because I think that the new normal has changed what a solution is, because in the past solutions were created by the vendor and not by the buyer. And now I feel that solutions are co-created with the buyer and that the real focus is on the business outcomes that come behind those solutions.
I agree 100%, 100%. And what you just described is a much more sophisticated methodology of selling, which means it's not about tactics and strategies. It really is about making this a collaboration, getting better at understanding exactly what your situation is and how to co-design the outcome that you want.
Right.
Spot on. And that's not easy for a lot of people to transition into.
And I think the difficulty really comes that salespeople were viewing themselves as star players. And now they need to be more team players and play better on their team with the team behind them in the company, but also playing better and energize the team within the company.
Yeah, and another way to say that is adding value. Because if your value used to be that you were the spot where a buyer educated themselves, you're not anymore. And the reality check is they've gone online, they've asked their colleagues, they can do an awful lot of research. They're a highly educated buyer, so your role has shifted. That means the value you bring to the table is your ability to kind of synthesize that, not create it.
So what we're really talking about is transformation.
Right.
And we need to become transformational leaders and not just change agents. Because the transformation needs to be sustainable. How do we do that?
Well, you're absolutely right. And there's some good studies at Harvard that look at this, especially with leadership and how do we manage under stress. One of the most important things for sales leaders today to build that stamina, to build that resilience, is actually around recovery. The pressure and stress on a sales manager to lead effectively in this kind of new normal environment is actually quite wearing. So things like, whether you take a break and take a walk for 5 minutes or grab a cup of coffee, up to actually plan your vacations, but somehow making sure that there's recovery time for that sales manager gives them that stamina and stability to be there for their teams.
It's interesting that you talk about stamina because a lot of people at our conferences talk about the key role that salespeople need to play, which is be the provider of positive energy.
Exactly. If you're really centered and really solid in uncertain times, you become that anchor and that driving force for the sales organization. And your reps need that. You know, in today's environment where there's so much pressure to perform, so many outside stressors, reps, you know, the bigger challenge we have is not just keeping them satisfied and performing,
Right.
but also lower our risk of losing them.
Right. So how do we roll this into one sort of guide for sales managers? What does your company do to help your clients win?
The biggest thing that we would do is help them with the sales analytics to arm, I would say, demystify sales performance and arm those sales managers with analytics that have them making accurate decisions.
Right.
Again, there's not a lot of time in the new normal to waste money or waste time. Whatever they do has to be spot on.
It makes total sense because you want to create a culture of measurement where sales managers make decisions based on science and not based on hunches.
Exactly.
Thank you, Nancy. We're going to continue our conversation tomorrow with Nancy Martini, where we talk about the top 10 tips for making sales training work. For anyone who wants to learn more about Nancy's company, go to piworldwide.com.